Welcome back to another episode of Nothing Agreed. Back with the boys, Baron, myself, the original crew, just us today. Baron, how are we doing?
Doing all right. How are you?
I can't complain myself. I mean, I've kind of been staying up recently till like 2, 3 in the morning. Not a good shout to be honest, but I've been getting some work done and being productive. So I mean, it's like a coin flip for me.
That's
It's
good.
there's positives and negatives. So
That's good.
yeah, I can't really say much about that, but
Okay. Okay.
other than that, Game 7 NBA Finals,
Mhm.
right?
That's right.
We've had a we've had a day to think about it, had a day to
Mhm.
process all the hot takes that come out immediately the day of or the day after. We've
Mhm.
had all the time to think about what's next in the NBA, but of course, we just start with what actually happened in Game 7. Of course, that one was the
Well,
Pacers
right,
in
right.
control
Before we
until
hold on, let's before we talk about Game 7, right? Because our last recording when we had our lovely guest Grayson, we talked about it was Game 5 had happened at that point, right? It was three
yes,
two. Yeah. So Game 6, let's do that one first, real quick. In Indiana, um, I think me and Grayson said that this series is going to 7. I don't remember what you said, but
I said
Pacers got it
OKC at
done.
6.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Pacers got it done. Tyrese Halliburton came back, played on that leg injury. A lot of people didn't think he would show out, but he did. Forgive me, I don't have those stats off the top of my head, but it's a good game from the Pacers all around, and
Yeah, it
yeah,
was a
ultimately pushed this series to 7. But we can,
Yeah, 108-91 that game.
yeah,
And Pascal had 16, Halliburton had 14, Nemhard had 17, Obi Toppin had 20 off the bench.
yeah, that was
Like
a
TJ
that was
McConnell
a
12,
good
and
story.
what they did amazing was, Shea only shot 15 shots that game, 7 8 from the 59, 21 points. Jalen Williams had 16. Other than that, Chet was held to 4. Right, Lou
Right.
Dort a 3 point game, which of course is usually how it goes, but I mean, if you can keep Shea under 25 points, that's amazing. So Isaiah Hardenstein had 10, but again, he only had 4 rebounds. Jalen Williams had negative 40 plus minus, which is the worst plus minus in like the shot clock era for the finals. So yeah, that really shows you kind of how dominant Indiana was. 17-point victory at home to get to Game 7.
And then yeah, but go back. We can go back to it now. Game 7, back in Oklahoma City. Like you said, Indiana was up going into the first quarter. When tragedy strikes, right? Everyone knows at this point. Tyrese Halliburton went down with his Achilles injury. Um, and yeah, the Thunder went on to win that game. And I'm gonna assume I haven't been on NBA Twitter that much, or really social media as much, since the finals.
Makes it nice.
Really haven't had a chance to, but I'm gonna assume the top story out of this whole series is the Pacers probably would have won that game if Halliburton played. And granted, I watched most of that game, so I can confidently say there is some merit to that claim. At least I'll say this: in the first half of that game, it was very close. I believe the Pacers were up 1 at halftime going into half. Um,
Indeed.
I think if Tyrese Halliburton had not gotten injured, they would have been up double digits, maybe like 15 plus going into that halftime. So we definitely would be talking about that game in a different light. But I don't know, man. I mean, you can kind of make that argument like, oh, a star goes down, so if he didn't go down, the team would have won that game. That argument works when the other team's not playing at their best, which is why I thought this would be a valid argument because Oklahoma City that first half did not play well. But man, they came out of the gates that second half and they were a finals winning
Lights
team. I
out,
mean,
man. Yeah.
they played great. I remember there was that one stretch where the announcers were talking is like, oh yeah, this game's gone back and forth. There's no team's ever led by more than 5, and then not even 30 seconds later, Oklahoma City's up by like 15. They made like 3 runs in a row. So it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, you could. So I do think that claim could be made in the first half. I mean, T.J. McConnell, Pascal Siakam, those Pacers were putting everything out they had. Miles Turner did not have a great game. He missed a lot of free throws. Yeah, I ultimately don't think the Tyrese Halliburton being there would have been enough. I think that sort of second half spurt from the Thunder was, as long as that was going to happen, regardless of who was on the court, I think they would have won. I mean, they were just shooting lights out. And again, let's not we have to remember Tyrese Halliburton had a great playoff run, right? But he was rated most overall for a reason, Brooks. He's very inconsistent. So while he had a great
Most
hot
of the
start
range,
to
yeah.
that game, yeah. There's no guarantee that he would have been on fire the rest of that game. So he could have really only added like 6 more points realistically. I mean, we've seen him have games like that in these playoffs as well. So
I gotta completely disagree with you on that. I feel like the reason the Pacers lost, right? If you're a box score merchant, and I am not, I sat watching the entire thing, of course, and one of the things that was killer was turnovers. I think they had like 23 or 24 turnovers compared to the Thunder 7. What is Tyrese Halliburton known for? You'd like to say the inconsistency. One thing I can rely on his consistency is that he's going to keep you under that turnover mark and usually win the turnover battle. I mean, he averaged about 2 turnovers his playoffs, right? TJ McConnell had 7 in total because he became the primary ball handler, and it was very tough for him against his Pacers defense. He had 7. Obi Toppin had 0 points, 3 turnovers, right? Like, Benedict Mathurin had a good game scoring-wise, but also another 3 turnovers. So I just think if you have Halliburton on the floor, you're not going to put up 20-plus turnovers, which led to that huge scoring outburst in the third quarter for the Thunder. I genuinely think this game, and I'm not saying the Pacers are winning, I think this game is much closer down to the wire, and we have arguably maybe the greatest game of basketball in terms of not expectations, but what's on the line since that 2016 Game 7 NBA Finals. I mean, we already saw the hot start he was on, too. The whole premise of Tyrese Halliburton, if you have been on social media, was, hey, we figured out Tyrese Halliburton cannot hit a shot. If you split the court in half, he's hit 1 shot the entire Finals on the left side, right? He hit 1 shot, and it was in Game 6. He hit 2 threes in the first quarter off the left side. 2 threes. Like, immediately going over 6 total games in that. He was feeling it. He was telling the crowd, like SCFU, all this stuff. So, like, it was a good scoring outburst. Of course, I can't speak on what would happen after it because that's a what if. And I now think we have one of the deadliest what ifs in NBA history.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's good for Pacers fans in some way because, I mean, they can always say, well, we probably would have won with Halliburton. So you know how fans like to do that. They're not completely and utterly crushed. But, yeah, I'd still like to say, talk about some more things about the game. First off, shout out SGA, Western Conference MVP, Finals MVP, regular season MVP. Certainly played like it in Game 7.
Yep.
Certainly played like it. What was it, like 40-something points? Maybe not that much, but
29.
Yeah, 29. All right, I'm thinking of a different game. 29 points. I don't know. He almost had he had a lot of assists. I forget how many.
He had 12 assists, which is a playoff high for him. But
yeah, I forgot how many rebounds he had.
I want to disagree with you just a tad, and I think the assists helped that 8 of 27 and that 2 of 12 from 3. Right? I mean, if Shea maybe has 4 or 5 assists and he has 29 points, we're going, this is a typical Shea game minus him actually hitting his shots. Right, and then I think that really helped bolster his Finals MVP campaign. I, of course, was making an argument for Jalen Williams on the podcast before Game 6 happened when he had a minus 40 on the plus minus. The Brooks curse once again strikes. So, yeah, I don't think this was a crazy, amazing series by SGA, but I think it was consistent of an MVP level. Like, it wasn't LeBron in the Finals when he steps up and he's scoring like this, that. Of course, that's comparing to one of the greatest of all time, if not the greatest of all time. But for a season like you had, he definitely performed well.
I also don't. Yeah, if you go back and like you said, look at all Game 7 or all 7 games of this series, he probably was the most consistent Thunder player, and that's usually who these awards, these championship awards, end up going to. So, I don't think you would have see any protests about that. But I also want to say Chet Holmgren had a pretty good game in Game 7.
Oh, yeah.
I know he's been getting dogged on for not showing up these finals, but I'm not going to say it was the best game of the series because I didn't watch a couple of the first ones, but he looks pretty good in that game. So give him his flowers.
I think it was his best game of the series.
We got.
I genuinely do. Yeah, I mean, he scored 20 in Game 3 in that loss, but what was most impressive about what he did is that he had 5 blocks, right?
Yeah.
On defense, he was amazing. He had 8 rebounds, and what he did best, he shot his most efficient. He shot 75% of the field when he was in history books as a top 3 worst shooting center of all time in the Finals, right, for a series. It was him, Patrick Ewing, and Miles Turner in the series as well. And he came out Game 7, shot 6 of 8, had 5 blocks, plus 18 on the plus minus. I mean, he had the exact thing that you wanted him to have. And I just think it all was. I think the defensive side was his best side, even though he shot 75%, scored at will. The 5 blocks was amazing.
Mm-hmm. And then shout out your favorite, Lou Dort, Alex Caruso, all those guys for the phenomenal defense. I mean, they are, like you said, however was it, 20-something turnovers? I mean, they weren't all because the Pacers
22, 23.
were bad or throwing the ball or passing the ball poorly. I mean, these guys were creating turnovers on their own too, so shout out to them as well. Look at the Pacers side. Like you said, Miles Turner did not have a great series, especially in Game 7. I mean, I saw him miss at least 5 free throws in the first half, so that's not good. Off rip, you would have been up at least 6 going into halftime. That would have been better than 1. Pascal Siakam. Now, I'm not going to dog him because I don't remember. I'm going to pull it up now so I'm accurate. I don't remember his final stat line.
16 points, 5 of 13. But one thing I disagree on is that he played 37 minutes, which sounds like a lot of minutes. For Game 7, NBA Finals, your star player goes down. I think Pascal Siakam shouldn't even leave the floor.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even think he should leave the floor unless he's saying, hey, give me a 1 to 2 minute break. Again, we compare to the greats all the time, right? But you look at all the final series, it's like Curry will have 45, 44 minutes. LeBron will have 48 minutes, right? Tatum will play 40 plus. Jaylen Brown will play 40 plus. And you talk about the Knicks as well and Tom Thibodeau not subbing out his guys. Mm-hmm. That's a regular season issue. If he didn't do that in the playoffs and you leaned on that 7 to 8 man rotation as you should, some coaches do, then I don't blame you. But I think Pascal Siakam in the biggest game of your life, right? Biggest game in your franchise history, and I don't think will be topped maybe forever, right? This game can maybe not be topped forever unless they win a championship. Yeah. Then I just can't believe he actually sat out 11 minutes of the game.
Yeah, no one's going to blame him for this loss either. It's all going to go back to, Halliburton got injured. But I don't know. For a guy that won Eastern Conference Finals MVP, and if they won this series, most likely would have won Finals MVP. I mean, I don't think Halliburton had done enough throughout the series. Maybe if he went for 50 that game, that would have swung some votes. But in my mind, the Pacers won on Sunday. Siakam was my Finals MVP. And for a guy like that to, like you said, your other star goes down, 37 minutes, 16 points. That's not good enough.
I mean, I think it's about the minutes. I mean,
yeah, I know you're saying about the minutes, but let's just look at the field goal shots too. He took 13 shots. That's the same amount T.J. McCollum shot, and that's 1 less than Benedict Mathurin shot. I'm sorry. When Tyrese Halliburton goes down, your 1A is gone. You go from 1B to the 1. Everyone else is the 2 and lower. You need to be taking more shots. I'm sorry. You're an NBA champion before. You've been in this situation. You're the guy that needs to take charge.
If your role players step up, they step up, right? If I'm the best player on the team and I know, hey, T.J. McConnell is on fire right now, I'm giving him the ball, right? Because this is do or die. Keep it in the high end. Don't shoot with someone cold. But I understand your point where it's like you are the main guy.
T.J.
Go
McConnell,
be that main guy.
Again, I watched the game. There was moments where he was putting buckets in like it was no one's business, but like. Look at his box score too. He has the same shooting percentage as Siakam. He didn't even take a 3-pointer, which is he probably should have taken some more. So
it was the same amount of field goal attempts, not the same. He shot 8 of 13.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. But he had 7 turnovers.
He made more.
He
took
7
turnovers. Shots. I still think, and again, like I said, Pascal Siakam's a guy who's an NBA champion for one. He's been in this situation. He knows what it's like. He's been in an important Game 7, so it's like he is the guy that needs to be in the huddle. Give me the ball, get out of my way. I can do this. And I just didn't get that vibe that he took any sort of leadership once Halliburton went down. And again, I was sitting up here all postseason talking about how that trade for him might go down, or it looked bad then, but it might not be as bad now. But I don't know.
No, of course it doesn't look bad.
It's still a good trade. It's still a good trade.
Yeah,
but
of course.
I still think if you're a Pacers fan, you wish that this guy, who you're so happy, you're so high about, had just done more, especially with his background with the Raptors.
Well, let me ask you this, right? Last year's finals was Celtics Mavericks. Mm-hmm. What is one thing you remember from that finals?
Nothing.
Nothing. Okay, I remember one thing from that
Well,
finals, right?
disclaimer: those games were happening at 3 a.m. where I was at that point in time, so I
Okay,
wasn't
my
watching them
apologies. My
live.
apologies. My apologies. One of the main things I remember from that finals was when Brian Windhorst came out in Game 3 and said the Mavericks think Luka Doncic is overweight. He can't play defense. Da da da. That whole 9 yards, right?
Oh, that's where that came from.
And yeah, well, Luka
Ah,
can't play Brian Windhorst reported that after Game 3 when the Celtics went up 3-0
I didn't
and
know
said
that.
they think he's overweight. He can't play defense, and he said like, for a finals game, you got to put more effort in, right?
Mm-hmm.
What I remember from the Nuggets series against the Heat, honestly, I remember the one game where the Heat won, right? And the Nuggets won 4-1. What do I remember from the Golden State Warriors Boston Celtics series was Curry night pointing at the ring. And what I'm trying to say is you're not going to remember everything from a finals, but you're going to remember like key points or you remember storylines, okay? The two things I'm probably going to remember from this finals aren't from the NBA champions, okay? They aren't, and that's the same thing that's kind of gone with as well, even though this one went 7. I'm going to remember Game 1, Halliburton hitting the game winner. I remember the comeback the Pacers made to win that. And I remember Game 7, how he tore his Achilles. Game 4 for Shea is only one.
No, Jalen Williams 40-point game. I mean, that's going to be talked about next season when he's putting up 10-point stat lines. Everyone's gonna be like, how did this guy score 40 in the finals?
But
That's not going to be forgotten
when you're
either.
looking back at the finals, right, in 5 years, you're not going, oh, Jalen Williams 40-point game.
If he's averaging like 10 points, 13 points a game, people would be like, how did this guy score 40? I promise you that's going to stick around a little longer.
He's not going to. But,
He
like,
might.
you're going to remember these moments, and those are the 2 moments to remember. You're going to remember more from this finals, this playoffs, about the Pacers run than you are going to remember at OKC.
Yeah, it's probably true because the Pacers run was more significant. I mean, that's the same thing. If even like let's put an example. Let's say the Miami Heat did beat the Dallas Mavericks back in 2011. People are still going to remember that run more than the Miami Heat because that was so significant. What makes it different is they capped that run off with the championship, so that's why it's cemented in history. And we'll see how this finals plays out. Through only time will tell. But I don't really know. I do think there's a few more moments than just those two. I think the Thunder had their moments. Like I said, I mean, Shea's big game, Jalen Williams' big game. I'm sure Chet's 5 blocks, maybe not in 2 years, but we'll be talking about his defensive ability because of that Game 7 performance, at least throughout next season.
Mm-hmm.
But let me ask you this, Brooks, while we're talking about history, and I'm sure you remember there's another certain Oklahoma City squad that went to the finals but did not get it done. And that consisted of 3 NBA MVPs. Not at the time, but looking back, all 3 of those players have won an MVP. One of them is a 2-time finals MVP. The other 2 haven't been to the finals, but that's okay. They're still phenomenal players.
They've been in the finals since then.
Right. They've not. Yeah, you're right. They have not been in the finals since then. So, and I'm sure this is going to be the question everyone's going to be talking about. Is this new Oklahoma City core, let's just say, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander,
Yes.
Jalen Williams, Chet, is it better than the old one?
In terms of,
let's say, because we're going to go ahead and say in terms of skill.
If you compare 3v3, if you compare them 3 just versus the first OKC trio, no, I disagree. I don't. But what I do think is, and controversially, call me crazy, I think this Oklahoma City team beats that the 2011-2012 team in a 7-game series.
I do too. And let's put it this way, right? Because in terms of individual, like, accumulated skill, I would probably take that earlier squad, right? James Harden, Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant, all 3 very, very accomplished players. But like we've seen with the Brooklyn Nets, you put those are 3 players that have 3 very similar games. They're isolation scorers. They need the ball in their hands. Who could dish to others, but they're at their best when the ball's in their hands by themselves, and then you go get a bucket. You have 3 of them, and we saw this with the Brooklyn Nets when it was 2 of them replace Russell Westbrook with Kyrie Irving, another really good isolation scorer. It's not a well-rounded team. We've talked about this all the time on this show. You look at today's Thunder, and one of the big reasons why I love them so much and was so big on them, even at the beginning of the season when I said they would win, is you've got a guy in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander who's an isolation scorer, can get it done. another sort of rotational guy in Jalen Williams who can get you a basket, doesn't play as well on ball, plays better off ball, can play some defense as well, and then a guy down low, Chet Holmgren, who is a good shot blocker, can play defense, and can contest the paint, get you some buckets down low. So the difference to me is the three we have now play so well off of each other, whereas the three back then were more or less the same player who would bump hands and clash. Again, you take all the evidence you need with the Brooklyn Nets back in, 2019, 2020, or 2021, 2022.
Yeah.
So
yeah, then
I would say in terms of what you want, I'm gonna take this newer one because again they've also won the finals.
Those three against the OKC three.
Yeah. Oh no, the newer one. But I'm saying in terms of like accomplishments and like stuff like that, I think this new OKC core is better than the old one.
The team is better than the 2011, 2012, but those three players are not better than Kevin Durant, right? We're talking Kevin Durant, 30-point per game scorer.
I get what you're saying. Yeah, in terms of like individual like player ability, but I'm saying in terms of like success and team, like what those three achieved together versus what the other three achieved together, I think I'm taking this new three because I like what they
honestly, I might disagree with that, to be honest. If I'm starting a team up again and I pick those three versus prime KD, up and coming Harden, and basically almost prime Westbrook, maybe like 3 years out of his like biggest prime, I'm probably gonna take that Thunder side. But I guess what I can't say is that Jalen Williams and Chet are going to come up into their prime being younger players. So I guess we will see how their career path turns out. But the Thunder, in my opinion, this Thunder team is, of course, they are, and they easily should be the favorite to win the finals next year, right? They are. But I think if they don't win a championship next year, that's their window, is next year, and that's it.
Okay.
Because of all the contract situations going to happen. Shea is, of course, eligible for the NBA Supermax, which I think is up to $78 million a year, right?
Yep.
Chet is going to ask for a max. Jalen Williams is going to ask for a max. That is no doubt. There's no doubt that's going to happen, okay? And this team also is going to have to pay. They're already paying Hardenstein. They're going to have to see about Lou Dort, about Alex Caruso, if they want to keep those players.
I don't see them staying.
So you got to ask yourself about these contract situations, and I think this window is now going to start closing.
Well, that's
so.
I don't know about that, Brooks. Because again, this is a team that has 17 draft picks in the next, however, like 3 drafts. I mean,
but they can miss. That's the thing.
You're right. They could miss, but they've had a pretty good track record of hitting. That's all I'm going to say. These last few drafts been pretty good. Just like the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm going to take a step back and kind of do some glazing here, but there's no evidence. There's been no evidence since Jalen Reagor that Howie Roseman cannot draft. That's all I'm going to say. So until Sam Presti shits the bed and proves to me that he doesn't have it anymore, I'm going to trust him. And he has a lot of draft picks, right? So, yeah, you're like you said, Jalen Williams, Chet are going to ask for the Supermax. You're obviously going to pay Shea. That's your star player, MVP. In my opinion, if I'm Sam Presti, I'm letting one of Chet Holmgren or Jalen Williams walk. I think probably
you pick one. Which one are you picking?
I think right now I'm going to take Chet Holmgren.
I'm taking Jalen Williams.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I think Chet Holmgren is a lot more dynamic of a player, and I think Jalen Williams can be replaced in the draft. That's just my take.
Oh, no, we agree. We just said this. We just said two different things. Yeah, we agree. I would take Chet Holmgren to stay, and yeah.
Okay.
I was saying Jalen Williams can walk, and you were saying Chet can stay. Okay, yeah.
All right, so we're on the same page there. Yeah, I do. Yeah, but I do think. Yeah, we'll see what happens. And I don't think they'll keep Hartenstein. I think he's mainly there to help Chet grow into his own.
Unless they trade him, I think he's on a 4-year deal. This was the first year of a 4-year deal.
I think they are going to trade him at some point. They might. I do see them trying to keep Lou Dort, not Alex Caruso. I think that's a guy that they can be like, thank you for your service. Go get your money elsewhere.
If I'm this team, I would die for Isaiah Hartenstein to be on this team, and I've been saying it for 3 years now. I would love a player like Isaiah Hartenstein on any team that's a contender. So if they can somehow squeeze his contract into it, they could try to make it fit.
Well,
But yeah, if you have Caruso and Dort, two great defenders,
and then we'll see what they do. They could add cheap talent with these draft picks. I mean, I know we see what these draft picks are going for, like 4 for Desmond Bane. That's pretty crazy. But, and you're gonna like this transition, Brooks.
I already know where it's going, baby.
You know who doesn't warrant 4 first-round picks?
And agreeably so.
Well, I was gonna mash 2 of these players into it, but the offensive likeness of Luka Doncic and Kevin Durant cannot even warrant 4 first-round picks. They're combined 2.
Luka's crazy. Luka, the fact that they didn't get more capital out of him, and I know that Anthony Davis, but he's pushing that 30, 31 is crazy.
Well,
Kevin Durant makes sense.
Right, but let me tell you. Yeah, well, the Mavericks got the first-round pick for that deal, so it doesn't matter. Anyway, they're getting Cooper Flag. That was the deal. So let's think of it this way, though. Oklahoma City. Houston now has Kevin Durant. And this is a little fun fact, right? We were just talking about the OKC Big Three. Now all of those players have spent time as a Houston Rocket, assuming Kevin Durant plays some of the season with the Rockets. But let's look at what they gave up, right? Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, some other bum, and a first-round pick. That's
some other bum? No, they gave up Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, 5 second-rounders, and the number 10 pick.
I thought there was another player involved.
No, that's it. There you go.
That's a terrible trade, in my opinion. For the Suns.
What?
You like this pick for them?
I think this trade is a lose-lose.
Okay.
Call me crazy. I think this trade's a lose-lose.
I originally thought that, right? Because I'm like, why, if you're the Rockets, are you getting rid of players for this old ass Kevin Durant? You know what he's 37. Like, I don't know why people. I mean, maybe he's gonna be a LeBron because he's basically turning into LeBron at this point. But he's 37. He is an old dude, but he's still got it.
Exactly.
I mean, he's still putting up 20 points a game, so I can't hate that. But let's think of it this way, right? The Rockets. What did they need in that playoff series against the Warriors?
What do you think they need? You could tell me. I think they needed a number 1 guy.
Well, I'm telling you, they needed more consistent scoring, in my opinion. So, what do? You get rid of a young guy in Jalen Green who is not working out for you. I mean, let's just call it how it is. This is a guy that they brought in 3 years ago. Yeah, they've tried building a team around him. It's just not working out. He had one 40-point game that I've ever heard of, and that's it. It just doesn't work out. Dylan Brooks, that's a guy. You might not be too thrilled to lose him because he is a good wing defender and top of the key defender.
Great 3-and-D guy. Great 3-and-D guy.
Yeah, he is. So you might not too happy to be losing him, but I mean, you've got young defenders and Amen Thompson and what's the guy off the bench's name? Why am I blanking?
I don't know, maybe Tari Eason, Jabari Smith.
Yeah, Jabari Smith. Yeah, he's not a bench player though. He comes off he's a starter, I think now. But anyway,
he will be a starter now.
Yeah, he's other good defender. So maybe you don't really need Dylan Brooks for that wing defense. And you're like, this 10th overall pick. Again, this is a deep draft class, so they could get a really good player there. But I don't know. I kind of like this. You still have your young guy. You have Amen Thompson, who at this point they're saying this is our guy, not Jalen Green. You still got Alperen Sengun, who we'll see what he and Kevin Durant can do next year. I'm pretty excited for that. Jabari Smith is I'm pretty sure Fred VanVleet's still on that team, so it's like
the starting lineup is Fred, Amen Thompson, Kevin Durant, Jabari Smith Jr., Alperen Sengun. I mean, that's going to be most likely your starting 5 as of right now.
That's a pretty good starting 5, and we'll see what kind of rotation they put around it. I saw a report yesterday said they're not done. They're still looking at other stars, potentially role players to build onto the squad.
Right.
So
you should look for role players.
To me, I think adding Kevin Durant and not really giving up much of this young core that you're starting to build, to me, I see that as okay. Well, now, if they got rid of Alperen Sengun or Ahmed Thompson and for Kevin Durant, this is a terrible trade. But
if you're the Rockets, are both of those untouchable?
Yeah, I would say.
Because I think the only untouchable on the team is Amen Thompson. the right package comes in for Sengun,
Yeah,
it's got to be a great package,
it
but
has to
you
be
get
a really
something.
good package. But
Yeah,
yeah, it has to
Arnold
be the right one.
Thompson in those deals. I'm talking with Kevin Durant. At the time I was seeing it, I was the only person I was like, hey, he's untouchable. Sengun was a red flag, but he wasn't untouchable. But the Suns here had no leverage.
Yeah.
Zero leverage whatsoever. They said, we want a draft pick from this year, so you already put a timeline on it. Kevin Durant wanted to leave, right? So there's no leverage on, hey, this guy, he wants to go. We can offer you less now. They just have no leverage.
Yeah,
And
that's the main thing.
Now, here's my two takeaways from this. I'm Devin Booker. I'm looking around, right? I'm 24 years old. I make the NBA Finals. I'm going to go right back to the playoffs with this team. Flunked out since. Why am I still here? I know you love the Phoenix Suns. I know you're their all-time leading scorer. You have many franchise acclamations to your name. You need to go. I mean, you need to, and that team has no future. That team is not going to get you there. You look at the odds for the Suns; they're 301 to win the NBA Finals next year. That's worse than that's 3 times worse than my Atlanta Hawks, who are 100-1. That's worse than the Chicago Bulls, the Toronto Raptors. That's the territory. You're in the territory of the New Orleans Pelicans and the Portland Trailblazers. That is not where you want to be at DB, especially because you're now 29 years old. I look at the other side of this. I'm Kevin Durant. I'm on the Houston Rockets. My team is currently the 4th favorite to win the NBA Finals. Here's my issue with the Rockets. Let me ask you this. I'm giving the ball to one player. Primary usage rate, who am I giving it to? Who am I running the offense through?
I would assume it's going to be Kevin Durant or Fred VanVleet.
Okay, I run it through Kevin Durant, right? I would say it's either Kevin Durant or Sengun, but I run it through Kevin Durant, okay? I make a move on my defender. I beat him, okay? I get help defense. Wing defender drops down and covers Sengun, so I look on the wing. Amen Thompson can't shoot. Am I trusting Jabari Smith to make a lot of his threes? Fred VanVleet is inconsistent behind the line since he left Toronto. Like, this team does not have perimeter shooting minus Kevin Durant. So if you're going to run the offense through KD, you're not going to have a team that has consistent shooters across the board. Dylan Brooks was that guy. He was your 3-and-D guy. Yeah. Now you don't have a 3-and-D guy unless Amen Thompson develops one of the greatest comebacks on a jump shot that we've seen since, you know, he's got the same three.
I mean, they got Reed Shepherd off the bench.
This year.
Yeah, he didn't play much this
year. Had not a great year this year. Tari Easton's coming off the bench. That works, but that's not your starting guy. He's not a starting guy. I'm talking about the starting 5. The team that, if you make the playoffs, which of course they should, you're a higher seed, which of course you should be. You're going to make a deep run. Hey, let's say you're against Oklahoma City Thunder, Western Conference Finals. Well, I'm putting Lou Dort on Kevin Durant.
Let's hold on, because again, they said they're not done. Fred VanVleet may not be there to stay. They might want to get a better shooter up there at the point if they're not running the offense through him. So we'll see what happens with the Rockets.
I don't know.
They're an interesting team to watch. To your point about the Suns, yes, I don't know why Devin Booker in today's NBA decided to stay with the Suns. If he's comfortable with the records, the money, the fame, all of that, then yes, this suits him because he is the king of Phoenix at this point. Yeah, I mean, but if he ever does want to win anything, I mean, that's just, to me, is what it is. I think he's just comfortable being the guy in Phoenix. I think that's fine with him. I don't think he has any aspirations of winning a championship. Maybe not right now. Maybe he's got plans, once I hit the other side of 30, then it's time to go ring chase like all the vets do. But yeah, I don't really know his thought process. So they gotta be like promising him some crazy things every year for him to want to stay like this. But yeah, looking at his squad, I don't think they currently have a power forward or center under contract. So this is definitely something scary to watch. We'll see how they deal with Bradley Beal.
I can't recite exactly what the tweet was in the exact terms, but it was how the Suns flipped Kevin Durant, all this, to arguably the worst, like one of the worst packages ever. And if you look at like how it bounces around, Matt Ishiba took over, and it has been a horrible takeover. Horrible takeover.
Let's put it this way: that Bradley Beal trade may be one of the worst in NBA history. I'm not gonna lie. Just for what they thought he would do. I mean, they could have given up. I don't even remember what they gave up for him. They could have given up a first and a second, and it still may be the worst trade in NBA history.
I think they gave up like 3 or 4. firsts.
He has come to Phoenix and done nothing but make them worse. Whether that's his fault, advertently or inadvertently, but he does not play well with this team. They have not built a good team around this core that they're trying to build. They've tried to build with him, Durant, and Booker. And yeah, he's just been a problem. I'm sorry to say it, I actually really like Bradley Beal as a player, and I hope he can go somewhere where maybe he can ring chase, be like that third or fourth option as an older guy. But yeah, he has done nothing to this Suns team but make them worse since they got here. And I really don't know why they traded for him in the first place. I thought a duo of Booker and Durant and a solid team around them was good enough to compete in the West, and yeah, they just did not think so. So, Suns probably need to sell the team again. I'm not gonna lie,
They're not going to sell the team.
I know, but it's probably one of the worst, poorly run organizations in sports, at least in the NBA. It's kind of hard, besides the Wizards, really the only team I can think of right now is the Wizards. That's run worse.
You look at that trade, right? And I have it right here. Suns get Bradley Beal, Jordan Goodwin, Isaiah Todd. Of course, the only big name there being Bradley Beal. Wizards get Chris Paul, Landry Shamet, which, again, not the biggest thing. This was a 3-team trade, by the way, with Bilal Coulibaly going to the Wizards and Jarris Walker going to the Pacers. Yeah. But the big thing is the Wizards, 2024 first-round pick swap, 2026 first-round pick swap, 2028 first-round pick swap, 2030 first-round pick swap, and then every year from 2024 onward, except for 29, is a second-round pick from them. Like I preach this every single time, Baron, on this podcast. Yeah. If I'm a GM, I'm never, ever giving up first-round picks past 2 to 3 years. Ever. Because I don't know what's going to happen in those years. Again, like I said.
Unless it's really worth it now. Hold on, Brooks. What if you're part of the Giannis Antetokounmpo talks?
I'm not giving up 5 to 6 first-rounders for Giannis. I'm not. I know he's a generational guy, but Giannis is 30. By that time, he's 36, right? What if he could not be the same player, right? What if his contract ends? He doesn't re-sign with me, right?
That's true. Yeah.
So, again, look at these trades. Look at these trades that have happened. The Milwaukee Bucks, look at that. They gave up a lot of their first-rounders. Where are they now? They're arguably in the worst position they could be. Unless Giannis stays, then you just have a one-man show, and that's it. You have no draft leverage. Yeah, the Suns,
same as the Suns.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. The Suns have no draft leverage, right? I'm scared the Magic, because they're a small market team, we're gonna have no leverage if this doesn't work out, right?
That's true.
So again, I'm not giving up 4 to 5 first rounders for somebody that I would start my rebuild with that, right?
How about this? Let me ask you this, though. Would you give up 4 to 5 first-rounders for this year's number 1 pick, essentially being Cooper Flagg?
I honestly don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Interesting.
Because it just depends. It really depends on what my team does look like.
That's really fair.
Because, again, what if I get Cooper Flagg, right, and we're just mid? We could be mid. And then those lottery picks are all gone.
Yeah,
right?
What the NBA needs is a whole just trade market reset, right? Because 4 first rounders for Desmond Bane is quite insane.
But it's tough to set that.
Because and especially in the NBA when there's 2 draft rounds, and for the most part your second round pick means nothing. That's just kind of the consensus these GMs have now, is a second round pick is worthless. These players, more likely than not, like 100 to 1 odds, do not pan out. They don't play well. They might become a role player at best, but very rarely do you ever see them become a star. We've only had 1 second round player in the history of the NBA win an MVP. Granted, he won it 3 times, but still, that's 1 player. It's not a high success rate, and especially when you get out of the lottery, the success rate for those players are even lower. So, yeah, I really don't understand why. Because, like, in the NFL, you can trade 3 first-rounders for a really good edge rusher. And most of the time that works out. Say this time it doesn't. You could still probably find, if you scout well and play the draft well, you could probably find an edge rusher that can replicate or exceed that production that you traded for in, like, the 5th or 6th round, which is a pick essentially no one's really trading for unless it's like just here, have this. So it's like it's just two completely different levels to the way the team building works. And I really don't I don't get why these NBA franchises just throw away all these prime opportunities for like you said, the Orlando Magic. If this doesn't work out, they won't have their own first round pick for 4 years, and that's 4 years they'll miss out if they're a lottery team on generational talent, all because they thought this one role player would be good. So, I would like to see the market reset a little. I don't think Desmond Bain should have gone for anything more than the first, but I'm not in the position to make that happen. So
These GMs are, and they're the ones making it happen.
we'll quickly wrap up our trade segment with this. This morning, last night, the Boston Celtics have started their deconstruction of their roster in order to pay their stars, and Drew Holiday has been moved to the Portland Trail Blazers for Anthony Simons. I don't know what Anthony Simons is going to do for the Celtics. He's just basically another scorer. They already have a few of those. So, to me, this is a piece that's going to get moved after in another trade, probably to get some draft.
Anthony Simons?
You think they're going to keep him?
Yeah, I think they would keep him.
Okay.
I think they keep him.
Interesting. I'm in the other direction. I think they're going to try and trade him for something else, maybe another role player, but I feel like he's a more draftable asset to another team that's willing to give up a older, more savvy guy that's looking to rebuild. But yeah, is there anything else you'd like to add about the NBA before I hand it over to you?
I would love to add this about the NBA. Drew Holiday goes to the Trailblazers, which do I think that's a good return for the Trailblazers? No. Just because of his age, just because of his contract situation in the middle 30s. But everyone's saying this is a fleece for the Boston Celtics. Honestly, you could say the Boston Celtics won the trade. I could definitely say that. A fleece? Here's why I don't think it's a fleece. Anthony Simons, last year, expiring contract. So this is a rental as well. You're just doing a rental because
that's why I think it's a piece that's going to get moved again.
That could be viable, but I just don't think it will unless I don't know what team you go to. I don't know what they're looking for. But Anthony Simons now, he's not someone that is going to blow the ship for you, and he's not someone that is going to change the tides, and he's a one-year rental. So it's not like Drew Holiday was giving up for a young legend. Okay, so everyone needs to calm down on that. So that's all I got to add from the Anthony Simons trade. Yeah. And I got to report that the Oklahoma City Thunder are trying to move into the top 10 of the draft.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, draft's actually tomorrow. We'll see how that goes. We'll talk about that probably next week. But yeah, we'll probably just talk about the reactions. There's no point in getting into predictions because they could all change within a couple of hours. But with the NBA Finals over, Stanley Cup's also over. We're entering sort of a dry period of sports, Brooks.
Dry for you, baby. So dry for you.
So I'm going to hand it over to you for today's Brooks's Bombs to talk about this sort of dry season we have.
Boom. Welcome to Brooks's Bombs. Once again, dry season for Barron. Dry seasons for some fans. Not for me, baby. Full MLB swing now in action. If you really got to pay attention to baseball, Barron, this is your time, right? You got 2 months to think about baseball before everything happens. But I wanted to bring up one player with an amazing nickname, the Big Dumper, Cal Raleigh. I mean, most home runs of all time from a switch hitter before the All-Star break. I think he's at 32 now. He just had a home run against the Twins. He's going up there. He's on pace for 66 home runs in a season, challenging Aaron Judge's record, of course, I think of 65 in 2022. You should remember, Barron, that record of Aaron Judge because every time we watch college football, they would cut to Aaron Judge at bat, especially during that Wake Forest game. See? So there's something you can connect to. But Big Dumper is on pace to break it or get really close right now. So we're watching a lot of greatness go to work, a switch-hitting catcher you don't really see often. And now is, people say the dry period. Yes, there's not much sports going on. But if you're an MLB enthusiast or a sports enthusiast, you're not going to be that bored. And as someone who loves baseball, in the game of baseball, I'm not going to be bored, baby. So, Barron, this is your time to start watching baseball. This is your time to watch Alec Boehm ground out to short again. Okay? So,
I know. I've been trying to watch some. I watched the Mets Phillies series. Go
hell
Phillies.
yeah,
Fuck the Mets.
fuck
Even
the
though
Mets, baby.
there's that one game in the middle, they put up like 7 homers on us. But
Yep.
nah, we still own them. We're the top of the division. Braves are up probably like what 10, 13 games back. So they're not really contesting at this moment. It's basically a
Yeah.
two-headed race between the Mets and the Phillies.
Yeah,
And
say
I
that,
like our
baby.
chances. I like our
Say,
chances
say it's
right
a
now.
two-headed race. I love
That's
that.
fine.
Say it's
That's
two. Say the
fine.
division's over.
Yeah, it might
So,
be. It might be.
mm,
We're getting into the thick of the summer where baseball really
dude.
starts to heat up, just like the weather. And yeah, we'll see you in October. How about that,
And
Brooks? If you guys make it.
for those that are watching this, not doing the listening one, I'm wearing a PSG kit, not a jersey, a kit. You got to say, European terms. And also, fun time for soccer. So,
All right.
transfer window. Anyways, anything you want to add? I don't think you do. You probably want to go back to bed, you sleepyhead.
Me, I'm the one that's been up for like hours. You're the one that
That
woke
is
up
true.
before this.
Yeah, I woke up an hour for this. So, anyways, that was another episode. Nothing agreed. The Celtics make that trade for Simons. We have the Rockets, of course, getting Kevin Durant. We'll see more of the NBA trade
And
market
the
in,
draft tomorrow.
and the draft tomorrow,
Probably
baby.
today. Oh, we'll see when this comes out. Probably
Yes. So
today.
that'll be
So
another
the draft will
episode.
be tomorrow.
That'll be another episode. Of Nothing agreed. Thank you for listening, and peace.